Hello BookTube. We're going to continue with this library tour. We're doing a library tour of all my books, and we're just going to take a circumnavigation of this room, and then we'll move on from there. So we are now, there's a skinny bookcase right next to the fireplace. So we're doing the skinny bookcase until we finish. So there are no transverse books. This is a neat, orderly bookcase, like I wish all of mine were. And the top shelf, I'm looking straight at it, and the top shelf is all nature books, which I love. So you just prepare yourself for that. I don't think we'll do more than the top shelf in this video. We'll see how time permits. The first one is a trade paperback of The View from Lazy Point by Carl Safina. Just beautifully written, and with an excellent blurb from yours truly. Safina is a fantastic writer, and this is... where is my blurb? Oh, look at all these names. Good Lord, I'm in good company. Yeah, this is just a natural history of a particular very limited biome in Long Island that the author just knows to a fairly well and writes beautifully about. Okay, all right. The next three are all by the same author. He is fantastic. I love his books. It's David Carroll. This is the Swamp Walker's Journal, and then this is Self-Portrait with Turtles, and then the last one is Following the Water. And those beautiful black and white illustrations on the cover are his. He is also the artist of these books, and they are amazingly good. Let me get you a couple of them here. This is Following the Water. There you have Frida washing something. And then there's a turtle from the cover of this volume. He does spot illustrations as well, but yeah, there we go. Look at that. How lovely. He makes a book after book on the classic nature writing gambit of picking a small focus, a small area, a small ambit, and just hunkering down and learning its ways, and also taking lots of notes and doing lots of sketches of those areas. And I find it all just there's another one. There's another. This is the floodplain. I find it all just fascinating. I think there are a couple of David Carroll books that I don't have, but these I go back to all the time, and I wish that I had a hardcover of Swamp Walker's Journal. I read them so much that I want them to last forever. Sooner or later I will see a hardcover of Swamp Walker's Journal, and then I will get it. Okay, this is by Tom Long. It was once a column for the Boston Globe. I don't know if it still is, but this is New England Nature Watch, and that the author goes day by day throughout the calendar and just tells you what's happening. What is this a day when birds are coming back? Is this a day when also this is heavily illustrated as well? Is this a day when if you're walking out along the shore of your favorite pond, did you know that in the ground underneath your feet that was once mud, there are living frogs buried in suspended animation? That sort of thing. This book is just a collection of those columns that take you through a year. Okay. All right. The next three are also the same author. These are all nature books, and this is when I find somebody who writes about nature as well as David Carroll, I make sure to grab as much as I can find. And the same thing is true of this next author. Overwhelmingly true. This is Sally Carragher. I have One Day at Beetle Rock. This is in a trade paperback. All of her books are illustrated, slightly older. These are older than David Carroll, so the woodcuts they have a slightly more antique feel to them, but they are still wonderful. So we have One Day at Beetle Rock, and then Wild Heritage, which I think is her best book, and this is our author, and then Icebound Summer, which is all about the North, and which has, I believe, all of these are illustrated. The problem with deckled edges is that yeah, there we go. In fact, illustration style looks awful familiar to me. Who is the illustrator for this book? Yes, the illustrator is Henry Bugby Keene. Henry Bugby Keene is a fantastic nature illustrator who I have been known to buy a book solely based on his illustrations, just because he's illustrating it, even though the book itself is about something boring or barbaric like fishing. I'll still do it because I love his illustrations so much. Okay, the next one is an author we've seen before. I've mentioned him. He writes all kinds of books. He is one of those authors that is so good with the English language that you just follow him from book to book and don't really care what the book is. And this one, it's Rick Bass, who's the author, and this is The Black Rhinos of Namibia. His book about going and seeing the eponymous monsters in a country that is most of the time as hot as a brick oven. I mean, he barely mentions it himself in the course of this book. He is extremely eloquent about rhinos and their natural history, and also the doomed efforts to save them from extinction. But I have been to Namibia many times. I have an old friend who lives in Namibia, and I've trekked over every inch of it. And the thing that the inland parts of the country in the hottest parts of the year really beggars description. Some of you maybe have gone on a burro trek to Death Valley or whatever and been told by your tour guides that how impressive it is in terms of numbers and aridity, and how this really is about as bad as the surface of Earth gets. That, of course, the tour guides know that isn't anywhere near true, and you have to experience the heat of Namibia personally to really get what I'm talking about. It doesn't feel like it's on Earth. So no wonder the rhinos of Namibia are so incredibly short-tempered. No wonder they are. All right. This next one is a classic of nature writing. This is The Sea Around Us by Rachel Carson, which I got the Library of America Rachel Carson volume, and I loved it. And then I got this. I just got this recently. This was just a reprint from Oxford that came out. This came out in December of 2018. And perfect example of what I say on this channel all the time, which is that older backlist titles have come to me. I don't really have to go to them. But it definitely belongs on this shelf. Okay, all right. This next one is tough and laminated, as with the idea being that you might take it with you out in the field. We saw it on this channel. This is Rachel Levin's book, Look Big, about advice on what to do in all kinds of animal encounters, not just encountering a moose, although don't get me started on encountering a moose in the wild. Oh my God. It has happened to me a few times, including one time that is the basis for my legendary moose story. A story that I have literally dined out on. The short version is that moose are as big as buildings, and they're brainless, and they're incredibly bad-tempered. They'll charge at anything, especially the males. And now, part of this is not their fault. They are eaten alive by mosquitoes and ticks, just eaten alive by them. It's unbelievable. You're walking certain parts of the American or Canadian wilderness, and you're in moose country. You can pass by a tree, for instance, and you will see at your eye level a streak of blood on the tree. And the first thing you think is something out of a cheesy horror movie, that, there's a backwoods family of inbred albinos who are marking their territory. But actually, it's a moose. If you were to be insane enough to walk up to a wild moose and touch his fur, your hand would probably come away bloody. They're eaten alive by insects. So maybe they also have a rationale for being so bad-tempered, but this doesn't just deal with moose. This deals with everything, from orcas and sharks to bed bugs and termites. And it's fairly entertaining. I found it fairly entertaining. Okay, then we have another. This is another author. I really need to reinforce this. This is illustrated by David Gross, and it is by the great John Hay. It's called Nature's Year, The Seasons of Cape Cod. I really should reinforce this thing, but I also really should keep an eye out for all the rest of John Hay. I think this might be the only thing of his that I currently own, which is obscene. That's just obscene. And it shows you, if that's true, and I think it is, that shows you how long it's been since I've spent any time on Cape Cod. just relaxed, unstructured time. Because if you go to the used bookstores of Cape Cod, if there are any anymore, this is a staple of all of those things. You'll have a copy, multiple copies of everything this guy wrote. But there are the illustrations there. Some turns. You've got a bunch of other stuff in here. This is just a lovely volume. Takes you month by month, so you get the months that tourists never see of Cape Cod, in addition to the high summer months. Let me get you another illustration here, because these are quite nice. Yes, there we go. Look at that. I really should reinforce this. In fact, I'll set it aside before the cover falls apart. But I should look for more John Hay. Okay, the last book on the shelf is by far the best one. Look at that. All right, this is a trade paperback. I have a hardcover of this, a couple of hardcovers. This is by Wyman Richardson and is The House on Nauset Marsh. This is a great Cape Cod book, just great. He was a writer for forever and ever for publications in the city, and he told people about this farmhouse on Cape Cod where he repaired in all seasons. And it was a different time on Cape Cod. Cape Cod at the time was an extremely rural, rustic country retreat. It wasn't anything like what it is now, although there are huge parts of it that are still like that. But now Cape Cod is associated with a vacation spot for the wealthy. When Richardson wrote this book, that was not the case. That it was a very rough kind of living, and very, very beautiful, and it's captured beautifully in this book. And this book is also has illustrations by Henry Bugby Keane. So it just goes to show you can't go wrong with this guy. He took a lot of work and did a lot of great illustrations. He did spot illustrations in this book, and also full page illustrations. For a Cape Cod, really, the Cape Cod that is captured in this book really doesn't exist anymore. I mean, you can hunt for it on the Cape nowadays, but you'll know that it's an affectation. You'll know that it is. You'll know that, that you're 5 minutes away from a helipad or GPS or a smart home that regulates its internal temperature all year long, even though its occupants are only in it 2 weeks a year. You'll know that you're very close to stuff like that, and there won't be any way around it. Now, I'm overestimating. I'm exaggerating right now a little bit. The Cape is still mostly a normal place, and there are large parts of it that are rustic, still rough a little, but even so, the inroads have been made, and it leads to an inevitable progression of books on Cape Cod, where the authors just do nothing but lament that the old Cape Cod is gone. Richardson doesn't do quite so much of that. That's, I think, what lends The House at Nauset Marsh so much of its charm. And you can still go to Nauset Marsh and walk all around. I strongly advise it. So that's it. That is the first shelf. The video, I notice, is not very long, but for the thematic sake, let's stop there for today. Let's stop with these are all nature books. Let's just stop there. I don't think there are any other nature books in the course of this video, or in the course of this skinny bookcase. So we'll just go on from here next time. So I'll see you then. Thank you, BookTube.